Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Big East Rewind. I'm Chuck Everson, your host from Villanova, and my partner, as always, and is always wearing his orange stuff, especially when some of his boys are in town. And we do have the orange in the house today, the great Sonny Sparrow. How are you, Sonny?
I'm great, man. This was a long pursuit, let's say.
Well, he
Then,
is a guard,
then,
son.
then we got him. Then he said, "Sure, I got this." And he
Still
came
got the
like
moves.
two
There's
days
no
later,
doubt
man,
about
just committed, just like that. My guys,
He's still got the moves, you know.
true orange,
Who's
through and
family,
through.
man?
Family's family. That's right.
That's right. That's right. So listen, and now, Sonny, this will be the second. There's only been two coaches in the last 50 years at Syracuse.
Yep.
Notice I said that the right way, by the way. My boy Len Berman looking out for me, you know.
Yeah.
So there's only been two, and we've had the first one on. So now we're going to go to the second head man at Syracuse, and let me introduce him right now without any further ado, Sonny. Our guest today is from Tolentine High School in New York City. McDonald's All-American, played at Syracuse, was a 1,500 point scorer, and had 631 dimes, Sonny. That's more than you and I combined. You know that, right?
I do.
I think
I
that's a
do.
lot
If
of
I was
that's a
still
lot of
playing,
assists.
I wouldn't get there.
He coached at Virginia Tech. He also was an assistant for many, many years at Syracuse, and is now the head man at Syracuse, Coach Adrian Autry. Red, thank you for joining us. We really love having you here.
Thank you guys for having me. Excited to be here, and schedule eased up a little bit, so I'm excited to be here and talk and catch up.
Good
Yeah,
deal.
you know, it's we try to catch you on, especially the coaches on the down. We're just getting back into it, right? I mean, you guys just got back on the court for the first time like this week, right?
We haven't started, but you can start as we'll start in the middle of June. We had a lot of guys finishing up schools, finishing up classes in other schools, so we didn't get a chance to start early. So we'll start a little later, and we'll just kind of go right through. So we'll start in like the third week in June, June 20th week.
Yeah,
Good.
it's a lot different than when we played, man. I remember it was October 15th. That was that was the day,
That
man.
was the day, man. That was the day.
Listen, Rolly Massimino used to have buck. He would play these mind games. He'd have these big trash pails on each corner of the court in case somebody had to get sick. They didn't have to go off the court. They'd be right there. It was all like that with him. It was crazy. But the workouts up to that, now today they can pretty much. You guys practice pretty much all year long to some degree. I mean, there's rules, but you have hours that you can hours a week, right? That you're allowed to practice.
Yeah, during the season, in season, we have I think they said 20 hours. I think it's 20 hours and you got to take a day off. And then out of season, they get like as soon as your season ends, you got 2 weeks off, and then you can do some postseason stuff. And then in the summertime, you got summer hours. It's about 4 hours basketball, 4 hours basketball, 4 hours for the week, and strength and conditioning. So it's a total about 8 hours. So it's good to be able to get your guys in. You got to be sharp, you got to be quick. You don't really have a lot of time, and you don't want to wear them out anyway in the summertime. But it's good to
No,
be able to have those guys, and working and spending time with those guys.
Well,
it's a
especially the
lot.
way the teams are constructed, right? You got a lot of new faces every year. You need some extra time.
Yeah, I mean, our last 2 years, my first year when I took over for coach, we had a lot of guys returning, so we had some continuity, but
Continuity, yeah.
we were changing the way we were playing a little bit, especially on the defensive end, and offensively wanted to emphasize a couple of different things from when they had played with coach. But the biggest change at that point was the defense, and then we reconstructed a new team, and now we're reconstructing another team. So these summers are very important, I think, for all the coaches. And now with the way the movement of the players, they have that movement, to be able to move the way they are. I think everybody takes advantage of the summer times now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you,
they
you
have
ha-
to.
you have to. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
right.
it's just the new
It's a
norm.
long, Sonny.
You
It's
got
a
no
long
choice.
way from you guys are running pickup games, and the coaches were not allowed to be in the gym, right? Back in the day, we could run pickup all day long, and no coaches were supposed to be there, but you see guys walking by and sneaking in once in a while.
Peeking in, looking in over, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I just had to go to the bathroom for a second. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's right.
Hey,
So
how's it going out there? Who's playing well out there? Who's how many
yeah.
games you winning today?
Then they got smart at Villanova. They built the Davis Center, which is our practice facility, and the coach's office is above, and the wall is all glass.
Sound familiar, Red?
As they're
Oh
walking
yeah, oh
in and out
yeah,
of their daily thing, they happen to look over their shoulder. You could see the whole court.
oh
If
yeah.
you've been in the Mellow Center, he can
Yeah,
tell you.
that's the new one. Yeah, we picked that one up as well.
Yeah. So you guys went back. You guys used to practice in Manly, right, Sonny? Back in the
Yeah.
day. That had to be tough, right?
Well, you know what? Where we lived, Manly was nice. It was much better than going to the Dome. I'm sorry. The weather was better. The temperature was better. It was easier parking. It was home. Manly was home.
Yeah.
The Dome was like, we got to go down here.
Yeah, the parking was not good at the Dome.
Even for
Still not
practice.
great at the Dome. Yeah. We've been to games up there too. Yeah.
And it was like when we had it, they were playing with the temperature. They couldn't in there, right? Because Jake Crowhamel, our AD, was, I think, paid the electric bills, and he was like, "Oh, whoa, we got to back off on this one." It was frigid.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, man, I like Manly too. It was it definitely the access to it was definitely helped out, especially if you were running a little bit behind.
Is it still there? Is Manly still there, or is that still in use, or?
Yeah, no, it's used. They've done they've put a weight room out there. It's like an all-purpose field. Like so, uh some of our spring sports, play there and you try up, lacrosse, base, softball. They got a little batting cage there, so they made it like an all-purpose
Oh, cool.
kind of space there. So it's pretty cool.
The Lally Sports Complex now.
Yeah, that's right. The Lally Sports Complex.
So let's jump in here, Coach. We'll go back to high school. We like I said to you before we got on the air. We talked to your boy Shawnell, and he said to me, he said, as a 13-year-old, you were playing with the big boys. You were playing with the 17 and 18s. He goes, you were so far advanced for your age. He said he couldn't keep up with you, and he played his own age while you were playing up. So talk about growing up in Harlem and in the city and playing at Tollentine.
You know, um, during that time, it was a lot of different ways, in New York City and Harlem, you can go to. And I chose basketball sports, and it was my outlet, and it was the way I got out the house. And then it was a way that I became socially, kind of cool, but it was what I loved to do. It was something that I picked up. I loved it. Once I picked it up, I had an imagination. I played all the time. I was out there all the time. Always had a ball in my hand, and so it was just something that, like, it just felt like that's what I was supposed to do, and I played it all the time. And then one of the guys across the building, you know, asked me how old I was, and when I told him I was like 11 or 10, he was like, "Oh my God, like you kind of tall, you're a good player. Hey, I got this team here. Would you want to play with us?" With some older guys, and then that's how I kind of got started playing in some local neighborhood games. We had in my projects where we grew up at, it was a big summer summer tournament. So you had like all these different divisions, and so it was a big deal. And so and it was called the Kingdom, and it was like made like an outside like sports like outside arena. So it would be packed, and when we would play, it would be like 4 o'clock. No one was there, but when the older guys played, everybody had to start filling in. So I wanted to speed that process up, and said, so I wanted to be able to play with the older guys. So I started playing with the older guys.
So I gotta ask you, there had to be a couple big guys that were miffed, like, "Hey, this little young dude, this upstart guy, he ain't
Yeah.
taking my spot. I'm gonna teach him a lesson." Do you remember any specific guys that were like offended that this young kid
Um, you
was
know,
out there?
it was. I mean, it was a lot. A lot of local guys that played, and when they found out, how old I was. They tried to, punk me, sort of say, and rough me up. But a lot of the older guys that like played, guys that were in high school, guys like guys like John Johnson, that went to my high school, like a couple of other guys, Arnie Blackett. And then at that time, Kevin, you remember Kevin Williams,
Yep.
Sure.
that went to
St.
St.
John's.
John's. He was from my neighborhood. So, having a chance to, guys like Steve Burt, all of
Yeah,
those
Stevie.
guys,
Yeah, he
yeah,
was good too,
yeah,
man.
all those guys, those are the guys that I grew up watching. And so when I started playing a little bit with those guys, they kind of took me in a little bit. They roughed me up too, but they got after me. I got no respect. I got no calls. I couldn't make a call, and if I took a shot, I better make sure I make it because they would get on me.
Who did you
That's the
bet?
way you want it to be, though, Adrian. Listen, how big a lesson that is. The kids today don't have that kind of lesson from the local guys in the park, or there's none of that anymore. You AAU, you're playing numerous games on a weekend, and you
Yeah, win or
practice
lose. Yeah.
maybe once a week. You're not learning lessons like that, that help you not only in basketball as you get, as your career moves forward, but in life. Those are life lessons that you learned back then.
Yeah, everything today is and we're kind of, even us, we kind of try to take a step back and let the guys play, like learn
Sure.
how to play and compete. And everything doesn't have to be controlled, so to speak. That's how we all learn how to play, right? We
Yeah.
learn how to play through trial and error, and you just played. Um, and so you learn so much playing in the park again, like
Oh,
you learned a lot, and everybody played there, and then
yeah.
and you governed yourself, and the respect and how hard you had to play, and winning meant everything, because if you didn't win, we all know you wasn't
For
getting
an
back on
hour.
the
Yeah.
court for a long time. So
Yeah.
those things, again, those things are definitely missing. But that was fun, being able to go out there and compete against older guys, younger guys, whoever it was, and trying to, stay on the court as long as you could, possibly could, stay on the court. That was the goal.
Who was your guy? Who was the guy that you kind of tried to pattern yourself after? Was it Pearl, or was there some other guys that were maybe lesser known to the rest of the world?
When I watched Pearl, I was in awe. But the guy that kind of resonated to me, that I kind of tried to, you know, model my game after a little bit, was Mark Jackson. At the time, Mark Jackson at St. John's. I felt like our games are, coming up very similar. Not overly athletic, but had great feel. You can pass. A guy that that loved to get his teammates involved.
Cerebral.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so again, like he was one of the first guys, that I kind of said that, I kind of like patted my game after him.
His game was very unassuming, Adrian. We
Yeah,
played them, a bunch of times, and you look down, and he had 15 assists. I go,
yeah,
where the hell did that come from?
I know.
yeah.
And
What the
it's
hell
like,
is
did someone get a pencil and add some stuff
right?
in?
I think, I don't know if he was paying off the scorekeeper or what. I said, there's no way he had 15 dimes, and he did.
Yeah,
He did.
yeah,
He was good.
no, yeah,
So talk to us about your high school team. You got to, Malik Sealy was your teammate, right?
yep.
And
Big Philly, Brian
he was
Reese.
just a great,
Yeah,
I
Brian
don't know
Reese was
how he
your
was in high
your
school. He was
teammate,
good, obviously.
classmate.
He turned out to be a great player, and unfortunately, rest in peace, Malik.
Yeah.
So talk about that. And I know you had a real good squad, right?
Oh yeah, our high school team was my sophomore year. At the beginning of the year, uh, when you look back on it, we had four McDonald All-Americans on that team. A guy named Anthony Cade, who wound up being a McDonald's All-American. He transferred out at the end of that year and went down and played at Oak Hill. We had guys like Lee Green. Um, we just had a ton of guys. So it was the best team I had ever been on. And Malik was a great leader. And Brian Reese, who we came in together, but he had played
Right.
varsity as a freshman. I didn't get called up into varsity until to the end of my freshman year. But it was tough. It was fun. We worked hard. um, you know, we really we took on the personality of Malik. You know, Malik was a guy that was all about business. He wasn't doing a lot of talking and yapping. It was about getting results done. And you know, we played hard. And Coach Sarandria, who was our coach, you know, he was a fireman. You know, when he wasn't there, so he would have all his guys up there. You know, and then we were just a tough team. I mean, we practiced hard. We got after people. He gave us a certain toughness that we needed to have, you know, back then because you know that was a elite time in New York City basketball as well. You know
Yeah.
those 80s all the way into those 90s. I mean, every high school team had two, at least two um, high majors and really 2 to 4. You know, everybody had somebody that was going Division 1 high major, impact guys that could play right away as a freshman. So it was always competitive. I mean, during that time, we played against Kenny Anderson, who was the best guard in the country.
And Malloy, right?
Yeah, at Malloy. So our first game, as a sophomore, we go and play against Kenny Anderson and Malloy at their place, sold out in that little gym, couldn't get
Right.
in, and we wind up winning, and that kind of catapulted us, to finish up the best high school team in the country that year.
You're number one, yeah. Now it's JV. I got to ask you about your JV coach because I happen to know him a little bit.
Ah,
Talk about Gonzi because he would tell me all the time, I got red and braces. They can play more JV.
so Mr. Mack, Bob Mackey, who was the Christ Kings women's coach, and Coach Gonzalez. They coached us JV, and Coach G was just like fresh out of high school, man. I mean, like fresh out of college, and he would, like you could just tell he knew so much. He had so much energy, and he would always come to me. He'd be like, "Hey, hey, hey!" He would challenge me all the time. "Hey, can you dunk?" And I'm like, "Come on, Mr. G, you know I can dunk." He'd be like, "No, no, can you dunk?" And then he would ask me stuff like, "Hey, are you scared of this team right here?" And he knew how to get me riled up, man. He would get me. He could motivate me. Mr. G could motivate me, but he has so much energy, and you just knew. Now looking back, like when he left and he was there, he was only there for like 2 years, and he
Yeah.
left his imprint. People, when he left, everybody missed Mr. G because he has so much energy and passion.
Everybody could take a breath of air for a second.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, oh yeah.
He's still crazy. We
He
had
was
him.
he set the record on the show, just so you know, the most words spoken in the shortest amount of time.
and the least amount of questions that Sonny and I
Oh yeah,
asked. We
oh
just
yeah,
said hi, and that was it.
Yeah, we just roll tape. Here we go.
yeah, oh yeah. Mr. G, man, that's Mr. G for you.
Yeah, he's nuts. So now you as during this time you're playing AAU, and you guys, the teams in New York City during that time period was Riverside Church and the
Riverside Church.
And
Gauchos.
the Gauchos, I mean, they
That
have some
was
other AAU
basically
programs.
that was this for a long, long time.
Yeah.
They ran the AAU circuit. That everything went through those two teams, right?
Oh
And
yeah,
you played on Riverside Church, right?
Your
yep, I
church,
played
right?
on
Riverside Church.
Riverside. Yep.
Yeah.
You had to be on one if you were considered a good basketball player, if you wanted to get your rep, you had to be on one of those teams. You had to have one of those. I mean, just having a bag or a jacket,
Yeah.
kind of got you instant credibility that you was
Yeah.
a good player. Even if it was one of your boys' jackets or something. So if you walked into the park or walked into a gym and you had a Gaucho bag or a Gaucho jacket or a Riverside bag, or they would say, "Hey man, hey, you want to play next? You want to play next?" So
Right.
once
But
you
they
arrive,
look twice for sure. Because
oh yeah,
I'm a Long Island guy, and
Trust
I
me.
know for sure when we saw a gaucho jacket or like you're saying, it was exactly what you're saying, Adrian.
oh yeah,
You
you
know.
got
Hey,
instant
we
credit
had
right
a hard
away.
time. We had a hard time getting that jacket off of Andre Hawkins at Syracuse. His freshman year, I was like, Andre, man, that's high school.
Yeah,
Leave it
oh
alone.
yeah, oh
Yeah.
yeah. No, those are good times. Those
So
those
you had a
programs,
squad then. Who was on your squad then?
man. I played with a bunch of squads, man. I remember my eighth grade year. I had a squad where it was me, Kenny Anderson, Malik Sealy, a guy named Gordon Winchester.
You got two pros out of the first three guys you named already,
Yeah,
Adrian.
yeah,
Yeah.
we had a guy named Daryl Barnes who wound up going to Georgia Tech. um, man, we had some teams, and then when it was my year again, my last year, one of my last years in AAU was me, Chanel Scott, Anthony Pell, who went to Villanova, uh,
Anthony Pell, yeah, I know
yeah,
Anthony.
Anthony Cade, who was at that time. I mean, he was the first guy at 6'10" that we seen like shooting jump shots and throwing it off the backboard and dunking it. Shoot, we had Brian Reese.
Yeah,
I believe Khalid Reeves played with us for a minute.
wow.
Rob Phelps. I mean, we had an all Big East team, man. It was.
Yeah.
I mean, I
And
think
then on the other side of the coin, they had guys like Kenny Anderson and Conrad
Kenny,
McRae.
Conrad
Conrad.
McCray.
Yeah.
Those
Oh
guys,
yeah. Oh
in
yeah.
that gym, I've been in that gym a lot, because my kids played AAU.
Oh yeah.
We went there and got waxed a few times from Long Island. No,
Jamal Mashburn. Oh
yeah.
yeah. All
So
those
I
guys.
mean, yeah, they were some players, man, and those had to be some battles. Those games, and then it's bragging rights too,
Oh
right?
yeah. Oh yeah.
It's
It
and
meant
it's
a
not
lot.
just guys from one borough; it's guys from different boroughs playing, and it's kind of New York City bragging rights at that
Oh
point.
yeah, no, it was yes, it was. A lot of times those games, how they do the instant review,
Yeah,
how long it takes. It was arguing. It was people running on the court. It was the referees, separating everybody, calming everybody down. Those were intense battles.
yeah,
So
and
you talked about the Big East, right? Like that was a predominant, right, the place to go and the schools to go. Was that a common conversation, like off the court? Where are you going? Who's talking to you? The coaches. I know you got heavily recruited to the point where you turned off the mail. You said to your coach, "Take care of the mail for me. I don't want no more calls."
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
But is
yeah,
that something you guys had a conversation with? Like, hey, what do you guys think? You like Boeheim? Oh, you like Evans? What are you talking? Talking to
yeah.
Rowley? Are you talking to Lapis? I mean, what's going on? Right? Was that part of it?
Yeah, back then, I don't think, guys really discussed it until like it was like your senior year, like.
Okay.
Oh, and I know I had discussions a lot with Brian Reese because me and him, a lot of people had, you know, recruited us together, so
Yeah.
people trying to get
Yeah,
us,
package deal,
yeah,
100%.
like a package deal.
Yeah, crazy not to.
Yeah, so we had played, me and Brian had played together since we were like 13. So but we knew the college decision was going to be a separate one, but a lot of other people didn't. So that was and then at one point we were trying to see if any of the schools that were both recruiting us that we both liked together. And the one school was St. John's, and actually it was two schools, St. John's and Pittsburgh, because our high school coach Sarandria had become an assistant coach there. But
Hmm.
once Carolina got involved with Brian Reese, that was over. And then when Syracuse started recruiting me, that was pretty much kind of where I wanted to go. Once I got up there. But the recruiting at that time, people didn't really talk about it. You talked about your letters. That's what you
yeah,
talked about.
right,
Did you
right.
get letters? Not really, because again, you only could, the phone was you talked to high school coach. I mean, college coaches. They called your high school coach in the office, and your high school coach would get you out of class or get you down and try to set up a phone call to get you on the phone with people. So it wasn't a ton of communication back then as far as that.
So what was the tipping point for Syracuse? What attracted you to Syracuse the most?
You know, um, Obviously, the Dome, the Big East at that time, the tradition of the point guards, Pearl,
Sure.
Sherman,
Yeah.
guys like Derek Coleman, Billy Owens, Stevie Thompson. I mean, it just, the Dome was just, it was just something that, you want to be a part of, and the style of play and coach. And those guys got up and down. It was fun. It was fast paced.
Right.
And it was the Big East, and it was close to home, but not that close to home. But obviously, the school itself. And then one of the things that really tipped it over is that Conrad McCray wound up being one of my best friends, and he was there already.
Right.
So
Right. He was ahead of
you
you.
know,
Yep.
yeah, he was there already. But all those things were factors, and it was away from home, but it wasn't that far away from home, and it was in the Big East, and at that time, Syracuse was, that was the place to be. That was.
But now you went in with Lawrence Moulton, right? A lot of people, I'm not sure, know this. And how did you know much of Lawrence? Because he was an under the radar kind of guy. Were you guys friends before you guys went to school?
So we were not, and he came in, you know, well, he was supposed to come in originally the first year, and he wound up prepping. So
Right.
he wound up coming a year after me, but on our visits, we were there at the same time. Me, him, and Scott McCorkle. Um,
Yep.
and so he wound up coming the following year. He went to prep school. But no, I had not heard of Lawrence, prior to that. Um, you know, at that time, it was, you kind of just knew your area, whoever was in your area,
Yeah.
and maybe a little bit of New Jersey. That was about it. It was everything was pretty much in New York unless you went to camp.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now talk about a guy that achieved, right? And achieved right away. I mean,
Oh man, Lawrence was he was an impact freshman right away, and you know you didn't really know it. Like you talk about those pickup games, right? So like we talk about pickup games, and somehow I guess one of the coaches was getting water, and they asked me, how was they going, and he goes, it seems like Lawrence scores a lot of points, and at that time, you're not really paying attention. And after that, I kind of started watching our pickups, and then I'm like, man, he does score a lot of points, man.
Yeah.
This kid, this guy could score the basketball. So, because my freshman year, I played with Billy Owens, so I was in awe of him, and Dave Johnson and LaRon Ellis. Those guys were like, I was just like, whoa, these guys are like unbelievable.
that's a front line, boy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You had some real good teams. I mean, you had 20 plus wins every year.
Yeah, yeah, no, we had great, we had some great players. My freshman year, like I said, when we came in, it was Billy Owens, Dave Johnson, and it was the ascension of Dave Johnson. Him kind of his breakout year, and so we had two guys that averaged 20, and LaRon Ellis, he averaged 12 or whatever it was, and rebounded, block shots, and it was easy for me to step in and play with those guys.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
remember
regular
our
season Big East
first,
champs, right? I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, we lost our first four games in the Big East, and we ran the table the rest of the season, and
Yeah, 14-4. Yeah.
we wound up losing to
26 and
Villanova in
6.
the first. We wound up losing to Villanova in like the first round of the Big
You
East.
couldn't skip that part. You couldn't leave that out.
Listen, if he skipped it, I was bringing it up, Sonny.
Because when you're done with the show, I got a lot more I got to do with Chuck, just so you know.
I knew it was coming, so I wanted to beat him to the punch.
That's
Okay,
right.
I
That's right.
appreciate that.
He's
Thank you.
he's one step ahead of me. He's a coach, Sonny. Come
I
on.
appreciate that. He's a point guard, so point guards, we do think 5 steps ahead of you, big
That's
guy.
right.
That's it. So how much influence did Coach B have on you when you made your decision to go to Syracuse?
Syracuse. I
You know,
mean,
before you answer, how did it change from when you were a player to now you're an assistant, then you're the associate head? Take us through the stages of how your relationship changed, and then you became the guy. So
yeah.
take us through those stages, man. I'm real curious to see how that doesn't happen too often.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Coach, coach. And so it's like Coach. He was as a player. He was always going to challenge you. He was always going to push you. Um, the one thing, for me, he always, kind of had your back. No matter what. Like even, he would get on you, but when it was time to go, he knew what to say and kind of made the game easy and he simplified it for you. I think that was one of his greatest attributes is being able to simplify the game for his players, and give them confidence, and challenge them. And that was the one thing, and it was the expectation. Like the challenge was the expectation of like, yeah, we're Syracuse. You're supposed to be good. The reason why you're here, this is why I'm coaching you. And so, and then when I worked for him, it was the same. Like you needed to, it was the same, as far as pushing me as a coach, having me prepared, not just, the day to day, but, going forward, he was always challenging. And again, he didn't talk a lot, but when he asked you a question, you need to have the answer for that question, and if you didn't, you kind of knew like, man, I kind of messed that up. So you would prepare, for him to ask you another question the next time and be ready for that. So he was a guy, I think, as a coach and then working for him, a guy that always kind of pushed people. He just pushed people to be their best. Always challenged them, and as I got older and worked with him longer, he started giving me a little bit more freedom and started giving me a little bit more trust. And as
Right.
when you work with someone of that stature that's been doing it that long, when they start trusting you, it gives you a sense of confidence in yourself that you're doing some stuff right. You're doing some stuff right, and you've kind of earned his respect and earned those stripes, and that was big. That was big. And you notice if coach said, "Hey man, you played a good game," that was big.
Yeah, yeah.
When he gave you a compliment, like you earned that.
Yeah, yeah. He didn't
Because
just throw compliments around. That's
no,
for
he
sure.
didn't throw compliments out like that. So I thought, as a coach, you know, um, he was a little bit more conversational, and a little bit nicer, but as a player, he would get on you, but he knew when to push and when to pull.
Yeah, it's a totally different relationship, the player to coach. I mean, I've said this too about Massimino. When you're playing for him, you're kind of the employee at the
Yeah.
point.
Yep.
Then
Yeah.
when you get that piece of paper that says you graduated from Villanova, now you're kind of on this, on the same level with him, and the relationship completely changed. And we and at for me, I had the basketball part of the relationship was that much.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
You,
No, no, and
Now,
he's always coach. No matter what. He was always
always,
coach.
yeah, exactly.
Um,
yep.
and he's still coach. And so, probably it was probably more of an adjustment for him. Um, me being a coach now and me, watching me grow. You got to think about it, he knew me since I was like 17.
Plus, he's been there 47 years.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh
So
yeah.
I got one thing though. When they named you associate head coach, right? Because that was something I wasn't that familiar with the titles, and then I started to pay more attention to it. Was there a difference?
It was. It was. I thought he gave me, when I talked about just now, more responsibility, more of a voice. He would bounce things off of me just a little bit more. And you could just tell that when again, when I said something, he kind of really gave it thought. But he started, letting me do other things, started kind of preparing me actually to become a head coach, send me out to certain events. Hey, I can't make it, you go. He kind of started to get me, in that mindset. Hey, these are the things that you have to do when you become a head coach. it's not just coaching.
Well, that's
It's
great. Yeah, you got to
donor.
learn the business.
Right,
You got to be a
right,
CEO. You're no
right.
longer just a coach.
And
Yeah,
then he would start talking about, scheduling and plan. I mean, again, the conversation just kind of started changing a little bit once I became the associate head coach.
that's cool. All right.
How did you find out? Did he come to you and say, "Hey, this is my last year"? How did you find out
Uh,
he was
you know,
winding it
he I wouldn't say he didn't come right out and say it, but Sonny, Coach, and we knew Coach. I know Coach. You kind of seen it coming, you know, and it was just a matter of time. And I think once everything, once after I think after the tournament, um, we lost to Wake Forest, and but prior to that, like a week or two ago before that, he kind of started asking some questions. You could just tell like this was going down, and you just didn't know. But I hadn't really, it was almost like he had an option. Like he wasn't 100% sure if he wanted to do it, and I think once he
Mhm.
figured he wanted to do it, everything just kind of rolled from there.
I think part of that is this is my 2 cents on that. I fully get it. I think once a person says I'm going to retire here, part of them is already retired, and him being that battler that get down in the dirt and grunt,
Mhm.
like that he would never ever say that until it was
Yes,
in his rear view mirror, not his front view mirror.
absolutely, absolutely. You could just tell, like, you just kind of seen it, and but he wasn't really sure, and then
Yeah.
it was kind of, him really making sure, hey,
Yeah.
you know, and once he did that, again, things just kind of roll from there.
Well, the nice part about it is he knows his house is in order, right? It's not like he's leaving A, the cupboards bare, or B, the team rudderless,
Right,
right? You're a
right.
capable leader. He's invested in you. There's going to be a smooth transition, right? So
Plus, he
there's a
kept it in the
comfort, got
family.
to be a comfort there.
Yeah. No, he was great. Obviously last year we didn't have the season that we wanted, and it was, some ups and downs. And I thought, to me, he really did a really good job of picking his spots to talk to me. He wanted, obviously he wants me to figure, how coach is, hey, he believes in me, but he picked his spots, and it meant a lot. It meant a lot to me, and especially, when you have a season like that, it's just, those are tough to go through. And especially, your second year after, your first year, you really kind of, we did a really, we did a good job. First year was still not where we wanted to be, but it was good. And then to take that fall last year a little bit, he really stepped up and helped me get through that, and gave me some really good insight and the way to look at things. And it really helped me going into this year, going into the portal, and kind of, valuing different things.
I got to
So
ask you one thing because we're getting in the coaching thing, but before that, what was one of their toughest matchups that you had on your Big East days? Who were the guys that you circled and said, "Oh shit, I got this guy here,
Oh,
I got that guy here."
man. At that time, I remember Terry DeHare from Seton Hall. Man, he would run off so many screens. And you got to remember, I was a high school kid, and I guarded the ball. I never really guarded people off the ball, and I had to guard this guy, and he ran through so many screens. I felt like a ping pong ball. He was so hard to guard, man. God, Terry DeHare, Chris Smith from UConn. He was tough to
There's
guard.
two scoring machines right there.
Yeah, man. Murdoch, Providence,
yeah, Eric
those
was good
guys. I
too.
mean, Rodney Monroe, when we played, because back then we would play the Big East ACC. He was tough to guard. But just in the Big East, man, those guys, Terry was tough to guard. My freshman year, he gave me fits, man. And then trying to stay up with guys like Kerry Kittles, he would just run all day long. He was long and athletic. Ray Allen was a tough cover. He definitely was a tough cover. So you know, you know, but those guys, but really Terry DeHare probably was my introduction, man. Like, it was just like, wow.
That's
That
a
was
tough
your welcome to
introduction.
the Big East moment. Is that what you're saying?
Yep. Yeah, that was
That's not a
like,
welcome mat. They didn't put a
yeah,
welcome
man, it was
mat.
Yeah.
like just running off, Anthony Avent setting the screen, someone else, boom, Jerry Walker, boom, Luther Wright. I'm like, God, this guy just keeps running off screens, and
Big
every time
monster.
he's
Luther's a
making
big
them.
guy.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, man, God.
yeah, no joke. So, so now you're the head guy. Now, how involved is Coach B at this point? Now that you're here, and this is your third year, right? You just finished your
Yep, going into my third year. Yep.
yeah. So I mean, so how involved is he? I mean, you mentioned a little bit, when he helped you get through last year some of the stuff that went on, but how involved is he? Is he at practice? Does he come to practice at all? Is he around, or is he?
Yeah, he'll pop his head in every now and then. I'm sure he'll pop his head in this summer. Once we get the guys going. And if not, I'm gonna ask him to come in and watch and tell me what you think. So if he,
Yeah,
what do you think? Things like that. So, but he pops his head in, and then in the beginning of September he'll come in and watch practice. And then once the season starts, he's getting ready for his games.
right.
So, and we'll talk every now and then, during the year, but he's around, but not
Not overbearing,
not
right?
overbearing at all. Not
Yeah, that's how
overbearing.
Jay is with well, with Kyle Neptune there for a while when he was
Yeah,
there.
no. He wasn't like that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So it's interesting. So I got to ask you, does it when they say, okay, you're the guy now, okay, they hire you, right? Does it go through your mind of who you're replacing? I mean, are you thinking about? He's got over 1,100 wins, right, Sonny? He's got 47 years at the university, Hall of Fame, iconic coach. You know, that's gotta be a heavy weight, man. Right? I mean, tell us about that.
Yeah, no, it's you know, you know, when you put it like that, yeah, it really is, and obviously I know it is. But the
Yeah,
one thing about Coach, I thought is that he gave me, the ultimate confidence that I could do it, and so I think that really helped, and he was there along the ride when it needed, whenever it was, whether it was good or bad, he just didn't kind of just, you know, leave me out there, and again, and it wasn't a lot, and he may not even notice it wasn't a lot, but it was just little times that he would pop in. But no, it's again, when you say it like that, it's just like, man, what was I thinking about? I should
yeah,
have,
right.
but I know, I had, this is Syracuse. I knew exactly what it was. I knew what the job commanded. I know the
Yeah,
tradition. I knew everything, and I wouldn't want it no other way. I wouldn't want to coach anywhere else. I wouldn't want it no other way, and I was ready for the challenge, and so it didn't make me, nervous or cause for pause. I was excited. I was
right.
ready to go, and
Well, I
I
wouldn't
knew,
expect that. I wouldn't
yeah,
expect you to say that
yeah,
because
yeah, and I
the
knew.
way you played and the kind of guy you were on the court, you knew that was not going to be an issue. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, again, again, the standard was set. So, to be able to, like everybody, you challenge yourself, and you're confident you can get the job done. And again, it was something that I was truly excited about. I really was, and still am. This is a dream come true to be able to coach at my alma mater.
yeah,
I
a
got to
lot
ask
of
a
people
question.
get
I got to go back for a second. Go back to when you first go to Syracuse. You're up there, right? September, you're a freshman, you're moving into your housing. What was the biggest adjustment that you had coming from where you grew up to now moving to Syracuse, right? Black squirrels running around campus and all. Because let me tell you, when Andre Hawkins said that, he was like, "Oh man, they got black squirrels up here. I love this place." So, so what was some of the biggest things that you had to adjust to?
Um, living on my own, not having my mom, kind of,
No mom's cooking.
yeah, mom's cooking or mom ironing ironing my clothes for me. I think that was the biggest thing, the adjustment. And then just the social aspect. I went to a small Catholic school in the Bronx, New York, and it was predominantly minorities. So like this whole big melting pot of different races, the diversity piece of it, I was just like, whoa, this is. I had never, I hadn't been around that, so to be able to adjust to that, and then I think those are the first those two, and then it was those winners, that first winter. I was like, man. I mean, I knew they said it was a little cold, but I didn't think it would be
a
that
little
cold.
cold.
Snow. Uh, but
Most.
I think the diversity piece, the socializing, the diversity piece, and just being away from home. I thought those two things really stuck out. And then when he got to basketball, it was really how hard you had to practice every day, because back then there were no take a day off.
No, there
They
was
didn't
no.
have that rule, and it was like straight, like, and how it was, you were practicing, and if you
Yeah, I
didn't do
remember
it right, you were still practicing.
Coach said, "Listen, Christmas, you're done with your presents. We're practicing Christmas night,
Oh
6
yeah,
o'clock."
Christmas night, that was a big adjustment. Golly, you remember being back for practicing on Christmas night. So
That
that was the first thing that I avoided with my guys, is like, we're not coming back on Christmas night.
you just can't get over that mentally. It's like there's no
Man,
two ways
Christmas
around it.
night. Gee, I couldn't believe it. I was like, is he serious? I remember asking all the players, like, is he? And Billy was like, yeah, man.
No, it's no joke.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
Open up your,
Massimino would do similar stuff to that. Like he would have you practice Friday morning early, okay? Like it's the last, you get your break weekend, right? So
Mhm.
so he would practice Friday morning early, so we would be off the rest of the day. You can go home. You're home Saturday, and we would practice Sunday night at 5. He goes, so you got 3 days off. I go, what are you talking about? 3 days off? He goes, you got all day Friday, all day Saturday, and all day Sunday. You don't have to be back here till Sunday night. I said, well, you had one day. So you had no, come on. That's crazy.
Oh yeah, yeah. That
That's
Christmas
it.
night. You know
That's
what,
on the
Sonny? Now
coach's
that you
clock. That's
said,
all.
Yeah.
Sonny, now that you said that Christmas night, that might have been the biggest adjustment, man.
Oh, that was like I thought I remember looking around like he's joking, right? And everybody's
Yeah,
like shaking their head. No, man, we're coming back.
Wow. He was like the Scrooge, Sonny.
man.
Come on.
And we practice hard. He just make you play
Oh, you
up and
have to
down. You know, you
practice
see,
hard.
oh my
That goes
God,
without saying,
Yeah,
Adrian.
there was no whistle. You went up
No
and
no,
down.
whistle,
That's
man.
right.
Yeah. There's no fouls in practice. There's no referee. You know that.
no. We never had that. Even to this day, I still do that.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Listen, it's not like you're playing in some crummy league. Even though it's not the Big East,
Right.
still the ACC, which is no joke. When you have so let's get into some current day stuff, okay? Talk about. I know you finally got your 7-footer, the kid from West Africa, and I'm going to butcher his name, but I'm going to try to. Diawara, is that his name?
I just call him Sheffy. We could just call him
All
Sheffy.
right. Well, there you go. That's why
He's
you're.
from Baramas though, right? He's
Yeah,
Baramas.
Yeah, yeah.
So you got a big 7-footer. Who else do you have coming in?
We got kid named William Kyle from UCLA. 6'9" center, just man, a guy that has a high motor, that's extreme, athleticism, talking about 6'9", 7'3" wingspan,
Wow.
42-inch vertical. The stuff that he does, he's an unbelievable shot blocker. We brought him in, excited about him. Nate George, the point guard from Georgia Tech, who's probably one of the best point guards in the country. He was one of the better point guards in our league, the whole ACC last year.
Yeah, he was
Very
solid.
talented young man, guy that knows the position, knows how to play it, and improved from year to year. He's only going to be a junior. And then a kid from guy named Nate Kings, young man named Nate Kings from Oregon State. Stevie Thompson was out there. I mean, I think he's one of the guys that people don't talk about, but he's a big time player. A guy that can really shoot the ball. A two-way player that can defend. Um, shot 44% from three for most of the part of the year. Shoots about 60% on open catch and shoots in the game if he gets an
Wow.
open. Excited about him. Then we got another athletic center, 6'9". Ibrahim Sore from Georgia Tech, a guy that has an unbelievable motor, just guy that can move his feet and fly up and down the court, knows his role, knows who he is. Um, and Tyler Betsy, who's one of the more talented guys, in our program, a guy that's a 6'8", 6'9", that can shoot threes, that can put it on the floor. Came out of high school with a really, really high ceiling, and he's still there and he's improved. So we really went into the portal looking for size and versatility, kind of what Syracuse teams used to look like.
I was gonna say the Syracuse of old. That's
Those
right.
long, athletic,
Long
big
athletic.
wings
Yeah.
and guards. And so then we got a young man, excuse me, young man. I just love his story. That's went to JUCO, then transferred to a small school, went back to JUCO, then got back into college. Just a tough kid. And he's really good, and then he's from the West Coast. So and then our freshman class is really good. Our freshman class is really good, and we excited about all of our freshmen. All those guys. 6'5", 6'6". Obviously Cayenne and Sadiq White and Luke Fennell and Aaron Womack, who he doesn't get a lot of press, but we just thrilled to have him. 6'6" guard. I mean, he was the only guy that's coming out of high school scored 50 like twice this year. a
Wow.
guy that can really shoot the ball, has to get bigger and stronger. But just love the group of guys that we have coming in, and obviously returning, JJ and Donnie was huge for us.
Right. I love the fact that you're recruiting high school kids
Yes.
because, that's part of this whole thing, right, Coach? I mean, you get a guy like Patino. He says we're not recruiting any high school kids, and he goes after just whatever he can get in the portal. But he can do that with his NIL that he has with the guy
The
he's
blank
got.
check. The blank
Yeah.
check.
Yeah, the blank check.
Yeah.
So how different is it now, though, from when you were an assistant coach at Syracuse to now the recruiting wise? How is that different? Like, and you have, I guess, when you go in the portal, you have to do your due diligence on these guys because they may not be big scorers or had big minutes, but can play. And there's got to be a reason why a kid is the way he is at that particular school. How do you weed through all that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it was just like I was just telling you about, the kid Bryce Zephyr.
Yeah, with the kid with that Stevie.
Yeah, from Montana State. You talking about a guy like him. That's what you're talking about. Like he went his story, where he went from and kind of his battle, and then you talk to his coaches. I think the one thing that really helped us um, this year as you go through the process is I had a general manager, Alex Klein, and so we had a chance to do uh, obviously line up the people that we want from a talent aspect. But once it got started, he was a guy that's coming from the NBA, and I thought we did a really good job of getting intel. Really like all the way back to like college coaches, AAU coaches, high school coaches. I thought we did a really good job of gathering intel, and it made it a lot easier to handle and navigate the portal. And some of the guys we had relationships with before. Tyler Betsy was a kid that we knew out of high school, so we
Right,
kind of had that relationship. So we had a chance actually to see him grow. Even though he wasn't happy with his freshman year, we had a chance to see him grow. So to be able to talk to him about that, I thought that really resonated with him and his family. Like, oh, like they knew we knew them, and so we had that relationship there. But the stories. That's what we looked for. I think, when you go into the portal, you got to have some criterias. You got to look for some things. You got to peel back the skin on a lot of things to try to, feel comfortable with who you're getting.
right,
And whether it's from analytics, whether it's from, intel, style of play, the coaches that they played for.
Yep.
It was just, we had a like a sheet of things that we really look for, and I thought that helped us navigate it. And I'm sure other college programs, kind of have similar things that they do that have a plan when they go into the portal.
Now, when
and
we
then you
when we talked to Ed Cooley, he had a recruit that he was going to talk to after, and he had a paper, I
it
don't
was
know,
like a note.
dossier
Yeah,
on the kid,
the whole
and it
big
was a
file.
personality profile. It was like in depth. It was like, and basketball was probably this much of it.
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
I was like, wow, that's
yeah,
changed.
Wild, man. It's and plus, and then you got to recruit your own kids, right? I mean,
oh yeah, oh yeah.
you
I mean,
constantly
it's
that
constantly
to
recruiting.
me, that's what blows my mind more than anything. Playing when we played, all three of us at this point, right? There was nobody, kissing our fannies or anything like that to keep me at Villanova. But if you wanted to leave, there's the door. If you want to,
Mhm.
or do you want to? And I think personally, the way the portal is now, it's too easy. If things get a little difficult, and it was challenging. I mean, listen, we all had primetime screamers that we played for, right?
Mhm.
Wasn't a fan of Coach Mass's every day of practice. Believe me, when he was, I had days, man, where I would be like, man, this guy's killing me. I don't, but I never once thought of jumping in the portal. I don't know how I would have reacted if it was like it is now. But man,
Well,
it
Chuck,
just seems too easy to leave, right? I mean, it's not,
but nobody's success path is linear, right?
Right.
There's ups and downs, right? So I think, and Red, I want to hear your opinion on this too. What happens when that kid hits a bump in the road, right? How do you communicate with him and sort of keep him from I don't know, talking to an agent or putting feelers out? I mean, how's that conversation go?
Well, it's adversity, right? I mean, how do you deal in adversity? Is that's when the true character of a person comes out there, and it's easy when the ball's going in the basket all the time. I look at
Oh
the
yeah.
kid from St. John's. He had one game where it didn't go his way, and he melted down. He had a meltdown.
So what's that conversation sound like, bro?
You know, we are always in constant communication with our guys, good or bad. I really give them a chance to express themselves. Um, I think in today's athlete, they have to they need to feel heard. Now, you still have
Sure.
your choices. You still need to, but they have to be heard, and I'm okay with that. I think my staff, we constantly meet. We're constantly talking with our guys, and you just have to. And that's what you talk about. It's not so much begging, but it's really just about how much you communicate, and what's the communication like. And a lot of times it's really not the kids. Sometimes it's the people,
Yeah.
advising or people
That are
around
around
them,
the kid. Yeah.
so
Always
the
has
kid,
been.
and the kids are, the young men, obviously, this is their world. This is all that they know. It's just like, my kids, and, grow up with cell phones. Like, they don't even know what a home phone is. Like, what? Yeah, I didn't have cell
Right.
phones. Like, it's all they know. So these guys, when you talk about being able to have that freedom. And it obviously it starts from the top, free agency in the NBA, and then, now it's trickled down to college. I mean, again, this is just, the era that we live in, that where the players, they just have, they're part of it, right? And if you don't make them a part of it, it's gonna be, it's gonna be difficult to survive, I think.
Yeah.
So that takes, but that now that's got to just that right there, right? Having those conversations, that's got to take, like you said, your whole team, your whole staff, a commitment time wise to make sure that those things happen in a timely fashion.
Right.
Because the next game's coming up in a day or two. You know, sometimes you're playing Friday and then you're playing Friday night. You're on the Sunday night game or the Monday night game. It's like, boom, boom. There's sometimes 24-hour turnaround. How is that how is that implemented? That can't be easy.
We have typically after games, we have what we call our, mental day. So that's just all film breakdown. We break down into small groups. We break down into, then we come together as a big group. And again, a lot of it for me is having them be interactive, asking them what do they see. Obviously I know what I see, but what do you see here? And so again, it's something that I've learned to do. My first year, I didn't do it as much. I had some, I would say I had some old school guys. My first year, I had
Yeah,
some old school guys, and those guys were tough, and they could take it. And not to say that this other team couldn't, but I think, the difference um, sometimes is just, you got to have them participate in their development. It's not like how we used to, how we grew up. You got to involve them in their development, and you got to put it on them.
that's a great way to put it. Get them involved in their own development, right?
Yeah.
So, change is good a lot of times, Adrian. And now we're talking about a big change from coming from Coach B to now yourself, right? How did you navigate when the waters got rough? I know Coach came and spoke to you a couple times, all right? But some of the folks that you have, if the Syracuse fans are very passionate fans, they travel well, and they travel well. They're at everything. How do you navigate through when the waters get rough
Yeah, all the
and still
background
and
noise.
still keep your great positive attitude that you have?
As long as it is their games on the schedule, you're trying to win the next one. And nothing really changes. If you win, right, you got to prepare for the next one to win. So you're always constantly preparing to win. And, obviously when you're going through those rough spots, you can't, you're just trying to stop. You're trying to stop that momentum and you're just trying to right the ship. And again, sometimes, in those moments, that's the challenge, right? Like that's the challenge. Hey, how can we get our guys out of this? And for me, it was really a lot of, just being upbeat, being positive, because being negative, we don't, in today's world, um, when we played, you had an article written, and that was that, right? And then the voice was your coach, right? But in this era, with everyone, it's a challenge because of the social media, because of the family. Like, so it was really a challenge to keep our guys positive. And I think you got to your team, and you got to pull stuff. You got to show them some positive stuff, and obviously they already know that we're not getting it done. So you just kind of continually just being positive and coming in every day, and that doesn't change. Even when you win it. So nothing. The approach never really changes. You just can't. You're just getting trying to get better each day, and that's what we talk about. We always talking about trying to get better for that day. Did we get better that day, and focusing on the next game, and we never get ahead of ourselves. And that's no matter what. And that's kind of the focus. And I thought this year we had a really good group, and they stayed fighting, and they came out and they kept going. But I thought my coaching staff did a tremendous job of just being positive, being upbeat, challenging them, not beating them down. And I thought our games, people still came to the games, and our fan base, they still rallied behind us. Obviously, and I always tell these guys, the reason why is because the reason why, it's like this is because they care. Our fans care. So, it was really just about adjusting how they seeing things, adjusting when you're going through things, right? How do you change that and change that mindset, because no one cares, if you feel, there's no time to feel part, to have a pity party, because that's not going to change anything. How are we going to change it? And that's what we talked about. How do we change it? What are the decisions? That's what I used to say, put it on them. Hey, what are we going to decide to do what we need to do to win? Because we lost games this year, by 5 points, by 6 points, by 7 points, games that we were up 14 or 15. So, it was, those are the things that, you kind of kept, and I got that from coach as well. When you go into those rough patches, you start pulling the things, showing them doing some things well, and then, you got to challenge them and push them from there.
So we're running up against it, and you've given us a lot of your time, and we appreciate that,
Yeah,
Coach.
thank you.
So last question, two-part question. So how did last year prep you guys for this upcoming year, and what can the Syracuse fans expect to see from the Orange this year?
Well, I think last year I'm really prepared, not only, it helped me, going into year three. I'm a better coach. I have more clarity. And I think when you look at the team that we put together this year, it was a lot easier for me. I knew what I wanted. I knew what I wanted the team to look like. So again, I'm better as a coach. I think the players that we've brung in, they all fit what we want to do, and they all, when you hear their stories, and where they're from, and the things that they've done, these guys are all workers. They're all talented. They all have some type of chip on their shoulders, like that you need to have to be successful. They all work. They're all self workers. Not they're doing more than the required time, and that's been the consistent theme and intel throughout that. So we're already starting in a better place from that aspect, and our so I'm excited about that. But I think overall, our staff has grown. I think a year going through that, it makes you reevaluate things. And when I went to go reevaluate things, I thought we all came out better, having a clearer vision, having clearer thoughts, and knowing what we need to do. We've already went through a bad time, and we got through it, and we self-reflected again, and I thought we really did a great job with this incoming class, high school class, and with these portal additions. And these guys are these guys are all older. We got a mixture of old, we got some youth, we got experience, and we got a very talented, freshman class coming in. So again, and again, everybody's story, everyone here, they have some type of grit, some type of determination, some type of chip on their shoulder to be good. I don't think anyone that's come in some type of doubt. They've all kind of overcome some stuff. So it was really about the stories when I put this team together because that's what Syracuse is. Syracuse is about grit. It's about playing tough. It's about competing for championships, and all these guys
That's your
all
DNA, man.
lined up.
That's your
That's the
DNA, man.
DNA,
Yeah.
and it all lined up. They all lined up from the way they play the game to intel to everything that we went through. So I'm just excited. I can't wait to get these guys in the gym, and these guys are, calling us. Hey, what do we need to do? Hey, again and again, people say don't say that a lot, but that means a lot when you got guys that are
Yeah.
intrinsically motivated, and that's what we have. We have an intrinsically motivated group, and I think everybody in the program is excited moving forward. I just think this is going to be a really good year. And I'm confident. It's not even a think. I'm confident. I think my first 2 years. I went through some stuff, and I've gotten better. With more experience. I'm more experienced now,
Yeah.
and the program is more experienced. So that's what I'm excited about.
Well,
So
I
what
think
a great
this
answer. What
team's
a great way to wrap this up, man. Listen, I'm not even a Syracuse fan per se. I do root for you guys because you were
Yeah,
former Big East, but I'm hyped up for the season just from listening to you, man.
I'm ready to go, man. I'm telling you right
I,
now, I'm
I
ready
know
to
you
go.
are. I could
I'm
tell.
excited.
I
Listen,
was ready to take out, put some shorts on, man.
yeah. He tried to put his jersey on earlier this year. Not
I
fitting
look
him
like a
just yet these
sausage. You
days,
kidding me?
Adrian. No, he's always got his orange. He's always repping you guys. He's a great alumni ambassador for your squad. But I know you know that already. So, thanks
Yeah.
again for your
Yeah,
time.
thanks,
Great
man.
time talking
Appreciate
with
it.
you.
Thanks,
I
guys. I
appreciate
appreciate
you.
it.
Best of luck this season. We'll be keeping an eye out for you, and hopefully,
Be in
I'll
your
get up
corner
and see
always,
you
man.
guys through a
Always
couple
family.
games. So that'll be fun to see you.
All right, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks, Sonny. Go Orange.
You
Thanks,
got it, baby.
Orange.
See ya.
See ya.
Our special guest today is Coach Adrian Autry of the Syracuse Orange, and the Big East Rewind was produced and directed by Nick Chico Chorus and Daryl Gurney. Check us out on the SiriusXM app, on YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with your friends.
Share it with
Thanks
your
a lot for
friends.
joining us. Good guest
Thanks,
today,
everybody.
Sonny. Good job.
Houston in the house.